See you around, kid.
Almost 1 year since its release, many fans and critics are still debating whether Luke Skywalker was acting completely out of character in Star Wars The Last Jedi. This talk has been further fueled by Rian Johnson, again opening up the debate, tweeting recently, Luke is in fact 100% consistent with his character, not the way he's described in marketing blurbs, but his actual, based on his words and actions, character from the original trilogy. I'll be at the bar if you need me. Rian Johnson has always maintained that Luke Skywalker has acted completely within his character, and I for one believe him. Now this debate has always interested me, and I do have my own thoughts on this topic. So many fans and critics see Luke as a noble, honourable character, who is the everyman the audience can connect with. He guides us through the story, and we see him rise from a lowly farm boy to our main hero. Where the controversy surrounding The Last Jedi comes from is the fact that Luke has abandoned the Jedi Order and was willing to kill Ben Solo when he was a teenager, if for only a split second. Fans saw this as an out of character action, and the Luke presented to audiences in the original trilogy would never do something so atrocious and was far too noble to be capable of murder, and furthermore would never give up on the Jedi Order. So in this video I'm here to try and convince you that Luke Skywalker acted totally within character in Star Wars The Last Jedi. So let's get into it. So firstly, I want to discuss where the character of Luke Skywalker is at in The Last Jedi. So when we visit Luke Skywalker after 30 years of not knowing what's happened to him, he is living a life of complete recluse. This has come about after Ben Solo turned to the dark side and killed all of his Padawans he was teaching in the new Jedi Temple. We learn once Luke sensed Kylo was beginning to turn, he decided to take it upon himself to murder him in his sleep, but backs out of his decision, but not until Kylo Ren saw Luke standing over him, lightsaber in hand. This completed Kylo's turn to the dark side, and he began a murderous rampage at the newly constructed Jedi Temple, killing all the young Jedis and joining forces with Snoke. Luke realizes how he had failed as a master to Kylo and seeks a life of exclusion due to his failures to the Jedi Order and Ben Solo, now Kylo Ren. Fans say Luke would never murder someone, and it is not within his character. Now I think Luke acted exactly how he would. If we look at Luke's character arc since the original trilogy, it is of a young man sensing he is destined for greater things, but he is brash, impatient, and a little cocky. He battles his inner demons near the end of the original trilogy, and even considers the dark side, and begins to see that within him lurks darkness, and he can lose complete control of his emotion, shown in his final fight versus Darth Vader. Luke ultimately does not give in to his hate and anger, rejecting the dark side. So from this, I think it's easy to tell Luke is blinded by his emotions at times, and they can take a hold of him, which is what we are seeing here between Luke and Ben. He senses within Ben darkness, and fears he will destroy everything he has built, so he takes the decision to shut that possible threat down. Here we see Luke blinded by his emotions, not thinking straight before ultimately seeing reason and calming himself down. I do think there are a lot of parallels between this scene and the ending fight between Luke and Vader. So now we move on to meeting Luke Skywalker in present day Star Wars lore, and he is a shell of his former self. He no longer associates with the Jedi and now believes Jedis need to die. So again, fans say this is not the Luke that was presented in the original trilogy, that Luke would in fact remain with the Jedi and truly loves the Jedi Order and is devoted to it. I nearly disagree with everything I just mentioned there. Firstly, Luke was basically thrown into the Jedi Order. We meet Luke in A New Hope as a young man yearning for adventure. He doesn't want to be on Tatooine any longer and wants to discover the galaxy and fight in the rebellion against the Empire. He gets his wish, but at the same time he is basically thrown into a new religion and given basically the largest burden in the galaxy. He must defeat the two most powerful people in the Empire and attempt to start the Jedi religion once again, whilst being essentially the galaxy's last hope. Luke didn't ask for any of this. He wanted to be a pilot and fight in the rebellion, not have the fate of the galaxy rest on his shoulders. Luke believed that his father was a great warrior and wanted to continue in his footsteps, having an ideological view of his father, not knowing the real truth behind him. This is a lot for someone who simply wanted to do good in the galaxy, and now from a farmhand, he is training to become a Jedi and save the galaxy. This is where I think The Last Jedi did an excellent job with Luke's mistrust in the Jedi. When being an impressionable young man, he saw the Jedi as the greatest things in the galaxy, galaxy and could see no wrong within the Jedi religion. But with the prequels essentially telling the audience the Jedi kind of inadvertently created the Empire, Luke begins to see that perhaps the Jedi are not what they are all cracked up to be, and he has essentially entered into a religion he simply does not believe in. His quote that the Jedi are failures is fairly correct and shows he is beginning to make his own decisions with regards to his thoughts on everything he has been thrown into. Luke never asked for this weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Why should he care so much for the Jedi when he was pretty much pushed into becoming one? Luke doesn't need to be a devout Jedi.
The legacy of the Jedi is failure. Hypocrisy, hubris.
That's not true.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out.
I see fans complaining about so many aspects of The Last Jedi, and so much of it to do with Luke Skywalker. So much has happened in the 30 years between these trilogies that having the character just be all good and powerful would be boring. I want to see a character who has learned and grown, whether that would be grown positively or negatively. But the character of Luke as an older man definitely should have had some life lessons and be wiser, which I do think was shown in The Last Jedi. There is no reason why the character could not have grown in the 30 years we've last seen him. We need to see what he's up to, and to have a character that it's all just been okay and plain sailing is just boring and uninteresting. Having a character who has had failures and tried his hardest but ultimately did not succeed in his quest is very new and very refreshing for Luke Skywalker. Characters can go through ups and downs, that's what makes them interesting and engaging. I think fans had thought so much of Luke by the end of the original trilogy that after nearly 30 years of waiting for Luke to return to screens, he was built up as the ultimate hero, a man who could do no wrong, who can never doubt himself. But Luke has never been the greatest hero, not by a long shot. He goes on a journey of self-discovery in the original trilogy, and the journey is still continuing into the new trilogy. Having Luke just be the greatest guy ever is not interesting to me. 30 years have passed for the character, of course. He would develop in different ways and have new life experiences, always continuing to shape who he is. You can't have a character pick up where they left off if where they left off was 30 years prior. I think Luke's development is excellent, seeing he still has much to learn, and eventually the burden placed upon him was far too much to carry. For me, The Last Jedi did a fantastic job with Luke Skywalker. Instead of just making him a mentor to Rey and be happy with everything in his life, he goes on his own personal journey along with Rey. He begins to find within himself the hero he was at the end of the original trilogy, and attempt to be the legend Luke Skywalker was. Rian Johnson did a fantastic job with Luke Skywalker, and definitely looks far deeper into the character than many fans or critics ever have, just taking him on the surface level as the hero of the fantastic films 30 years ago. I do think Star Wars fans need to be far more open to change within the Star Wars universe, whether that would be new powers added to the Jedi or subverting expectations with characters. The universe needs to stay fresh and exciting, and Rian Johnson has definitely told a story unlike no other seen in Star Wars. More of the same as the original trilogy would be boring. I want to see creative risks and new stories told. The Force Awakens was a great jumping off point for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and The Last Jedi took this trilogy in an exciting new direction. But with the mixed fan reception, feels we may get very much a safe third film, which will not take any creative risks. The Last Jedi was a perfect time to take a huge risk, and that's what they did. There are some bad points about this film, but overall, I love it. And I love what they did with Luke Skywalker, showing him down and battered and have to work his way back up. For me, the characterization of Luke Skywalker is done perfectly, and I thank Rian Johnson for that wholeheartedly. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.